Today we are going to speak about the civilization and story of medicine. This is meant for a general awareness of what is the value of healthcare in the human civilization and its cultural evolution. As we all know that human civilization started, or human being started as a community life around 10,000 years back. So, that is a time human civilization started settling down around the major rivers around the world and started building a civilization. So, that way humanity created major civilizations. They are called ancient civilizations. Few of the ancient important civilizations were, the most important were Mesopotamian, Sumerian, Egyptian, Chinese and Indus Valley civilizations. And these civilizations are the basis of human development for the last 10,000 years. So, human civilizational development denotes cultural development, the development at the level of technologies, development at the level of human growth index, as well as the socio-cultural evolution. But along with this, we know that health and diseases were also a serious concern, and therefore, the civilizations evolved parallelly health systems as well as disease curing methods from the beginning itself, which led to the development of various types of healthcare systems around the world centered on various civilizations. So, as we know that all major ancient civilizations evolved healthcare systems of that particular age, and it was superior at that point of time, because in each stage of evolution of human civilization, healthcare system also evolved into the next stage, and that is basically an advancement of human healthcare system for the last 10,000 years, step by step. And as we know that, we may think that healthcare system is something which is well evolved today, and all the systems were outdated, or all the systems were archaic, or we can say that unscientific. Such thoughts will come to our mind. But one thing we should understand very clearly, as the science grows with civilization, all the previous thoughts will get upgraded into new stages, and the new stage is not an end in itself. The current knowledge or the knowledge of ancient period is up to date only up to that date. Beyond that, it gets outdated. So, what happens is, this outdated knowledge which we think is not outdated knowledge, it is a stepping stone to the next stage of human evolution of knowledge. That is applicable in every area of human development, not only in medicine. So, when we look at medicine, we know that even Egyptians practiced surgical procedures, they had their own medical approach. It was a good approach of that time. And we know that every ancient civilization, whether it is Sumerian, whether it is Egyptian, whether it is Chinese or Indus Valley civilizations, all these ancient civilizations built up their own systems of medicine and a public health system. We know that underground drainage, piped water supply, and all the centralized system for healthcare was evidently present in the Egyptian civilization, and you can find the clear evidence of highly evolved underground drainage system and water supply system in Indus Valley civilization. It all happened thousands of years back. So, one thing we should understand, that medicine and public health was a serious concern from the beginning of human civilization itself. Definitely, we are in a different stage now, because our technological advancement and scientific knowledge is much superior. So, Egyptian mummies is one of the best example we can see. The Egyptian mummies, when they had, that denotes the high level of knowledge in chemistry by Egyptians. When they created the mummies, when they embalmed the human body and animal body, and the process of mummification which they practiced, the mummies are completely kept intact even after 3000 or 4000 years later. Egyptian cities where these mummies are well preserved, which shows the deep knowledge of Egyptians in the process of embalming that is fundamentally related to the knowledge of chemistry. So, the Egyptian medicine is one of the oldest medicine, and this oldest medicine, Egyptian system of medicine, had a specific and well trained system for educating the physicians. A well evolved system for educating the physicians. It was centered around the temple of Imhotep. Imhotep was the god of medicine for them, and we will come to the contributions of Imhotep later. And Egyptians practiced protocol based treatment, and they adopted surgical procedures, and Horus was the god of health. And Egyptians knew the cause effect relationship between the causative factors and the disease, especially the mosquitoes and their produces diseases, and the rats and plague, the relationship between the rat and the plague, rat as a reservoir. It was known to Egyptians, and they had a well developed public health system, and their hygienic levels were very high, which we couldn't think in the 10,000 years back. But we know now that their public health system and their personal hygiene was in a very high evolved stage. Another important historical medicine, Chinese medicine, which is continuously persisting for the last 10,000 years. And Chinese civilization has very important value in that, because their civilization never had a break or an interruption in the process of evolution. Huang Di was the father of acupuncture, and it is as old as Egyptian system of medicine, and acupuncture is an active mode of therapy even today. And acupuncture is based on two balancing methods, that is the balancing of masculine principle yang and the feminine principle yin. This balancing is health, and imbalance in the energy levels of yang and yin leads to health problems and diseases. And it is fundamentally a medicine based on energy systems in the body, or they believed in the meridians of flow of energy in the human body. Similarly, one of the oldest system of medicine in the human civilization, as old as Egyptian and Chinese, is Ayurvedic system of medicine. And in Ayurvedic system of medicine, you find Dhanvantari was the god of medicine, and Ayurveda means the science of life. And this based on the humor principle, that is three humors, Vata, Pitta and Kapha. And there are two fundamental ways of approaching diseases and treatment, especially therapeutics in Ayurveda. One is called the Viparita Chikitsa, and other is called Tadarthakari Chikitsa. Viparita Chikitsa means the medicine which produces opposite effect are applied, and they are subdivided the Viparita Chikitsa into three basic categories. That means Hetu Viparita Chikitsa, Vyadi Viparita Chikitsa and Hetu Vyadi Viparita Chikitsa. That means Hetu means the cause of disease, Vyadi means the disease itself. So, the cause of disease and the effect of disease in the body. These two areas are separately considered and they are combinedly considered for the therapeutic purpose. That is what Hetu Vyadi, Vyadi Viparita Chikitsa and Hetu Viparita Chikitsa. The other one is the principle of similarity which applied in Ayurveda, that is called the Tadarthakari Chikitsa. There Hetu Tadarthakari Chikitsa, Vyadi Tadarthakari and Hetu Vyadi Tadarthakari. That is three stages of similarity in the disease and the treatment of the diseases. And whereas you come to the Western medicine, in the Western medicine we will find that the Western medicine initiated from the Greek civilization. And this Greek civilization, once the political system of the West has changed, when the Romans invaded the Greece, then Romans adopted the Greek system of medicine and they evolved the Greek system into the Western system through the Roman Empire. So, the Apollo was the god of medicine in the Greek philosophy and the Greek civilization, And Hippocrates in the 460 to 370 BC is considered as the father of medicine, and he proposed 4 humor theory, that is the humors of blood, phlegm, yellow bile and black bile. Imbalance of these 4 humors produces diseases. So, Greeks tried to balance these 4 humors, like in Ayurveda the 3 humors Vata, Pitta and Kapha were tried to be balanced. The Greeks tried to balance the 4 humors in the body. So, as the Romans invaded, later the Greek system was modified into the Roman system, and later it became the Western medicine. And the important the Roman physicians were Celsius and Galen. They dominated the philosophy of Western medicine for nearly 2000 years. And it was based on predisposing cause of disease, exciting cause of disease and the environmental factors. And the treatment also was focused on predisposing factors, exciting factors and environmental factors of diseases. And the Greek and Roman system together contributed well into the development of the current modern medicine in the world. And the other noted medicine in the human civilization is Arabian medicine, which evolved in the later years, but they had well established educational practices and educational methods, syllabus oriented teaching, and they had medical schools in Damascus, Cairo as well as in Baghdad. Avicenna and Rhasis as well as Ali Abbas were the 3 major authorities of the Arabian system of medicine. They had their own diagnostic procedures and treatment protocols. They had trained physicians and they had trained male and female nurses for the medical healthcare industry. But another important person after a long period, so all this happened in the ancient civilization, later in the first millennium AD, but in the second millennium AD, around 14th century, one of the pioneer physicians in the West was Paracelsus. Paracelsus was a Swiss physician. He pioneered the medical revolution for Renaissance, and his period was 1493 to 1541. And he was the first in the history to suggest that blood and urine analysis is the very basic for clinical diagnosis. And even today we practice what is advised by Paracelsus. So, the evolution of Western medicine started from the Greek, later from the Romans, and after nearly 2000 years later through the Paracelsus, and the Paracelsus revolutionized the thought process of the Western medicine in the 14th century, but it further evolved by the process of discoveries. One of the most important personality in the current modern medicine is Rudolf Virchow. Rudolf Virchow, the pathologist who proposed the cellular pathology as the basis of disease in 1868. Therefore, he is considered as the father of modern pathology. And another important person is Louis Pasteur. Louis Pasteur, the father of microbiology, he proposed the germ theory in 1885. And Robert Koch proved that bacterium Bacillus anthracis causes anthrax. The cause-effect relationship between pathogenic organisms and the disease formation was well established by Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch, and their postulates linked the disease and germs and firmed the basic philosophy and theory of bacteriology and microbiology in the current day world. And another important person in that stream is Edward Jenner. He is the father of immunology, he is the father of vaccination in the Western world. His period was 1749 to 1823. But one thing we should know, that even before the vaccination practiced in the West, vaccination was practiced in Egyptian civilization, Chinese civilization, and it was predominantly practiced in Indian civilization also. But a structured vaccination method in a scientific way was proposed, and it was evolved through Jenner. And another important discovery in the current medical world is by the Alexander Fleming in 1928 through this discovery of first antibiotic, that is a penicillin, and also the later by John Bosley Singler in 1954, he discovered anabolic steroids. So, this all made the basic structure of the current modern medicine and modern thoughts in the medical industry. But one thing happened in 1953 which was not influenced the medical world for long time on its treatment strategies was the discovery of the structure of DNA by Watson and Crick. And their discovery was the greatest breakthrough in the history of biological life in the world, because Watson and Crick discovered backbone, the basic structure of human and organic existence, that is our DNA. And that discovery could not be applied into the medical world for a long time because the knowledge about the DNA was deficient all along. But the Human Genome Project, the Mammoth Project, the massive scientific adventure which started in 1990 and completed in 2001, and this Human Genome Project sequenced around 30,000 genes in the human cell nucleus, as well as it sequenced around 3.2 billion base pairs in the genes in the human genome. So, the genes and their base pairs are decoded in that period, in the last decade of 20th century. And there we find there is a revolution which happened. And similarly, in medical world we know that lot of technology evolved in the last 50 to 70 years. And one of the most important non-invasive tools of disease diagnosis was ultrasonogram, which was discovered around 1950s, and CT scan, computer tomography in 1972 by Godfrey Hounsfield as well as Alan Cormack, an engineer and a physicist. They combinedly discovered the concept of CT scan, computer tomography, and MRI scan. 1946 itself, the basic concept of MRI scan was evolved by Felix Bloch and Edward Purcell. And PET scan, which is the latest, was evolved in 1998 by Phelps. And all these procedures, whether it is non-invasive or invasive procedures, which help to come to a proper diagnosis of diseases. So, here we come to the historical evolution of the disease from ancient civilization to the current date, and the therapeutic application of these diagnostic procedures, invasive and non-invasive procedures, into the therapeutic application and diagnostic application of human health. And here we are coming to the philosophical part of the health and diseases. So, let us see what is the philosophy of medicine from the ancient world to the current world. We know that the ancient world, the medicine was dominated by quasi-religious thoughts. So, it was closely related to the faith systems. That is why specific gods were assigned to the medical world, because it was related to the human body, it was related to the human mind, and people believed it is related to the human soul. So, we know that the Egyptian system of medicine considered Imhotep as the god of medicine, and Horus was the god of health, and in case of Greek civilization, Apollo was the god of medicine, whereas in Indian civilization, Dhanvantari was the god of medicine. And many physicians gave the basis of medicine. Some of the assigned gods of medicine were even physicians themselves. Imhotep was a physician, and he lived in the old city of Memphis in Egypt, and he lived during the period of the Pharaoh Sostre. It was around 3000 BC to 2950 BC, that means around 5000 years back. And Imhotep was not only a physician, he was a physician, he was a scribe, he was considered as a sage, and he was an astronomer, he was a priest, and he was even a magician. And he was the first person made the basic architecture of pyramids. So, Imhotep was considered as a god in the later ages, but he was a living human being in 3000 BC. But once you come to the major personalities in other civilizations where the medicine evolved separately, Hippocrates was the father of medicine in Greek civilization, and he proposed 4 humors. And this 4 humor theory of Hippocrates was based on the philosophy of holism. I am coming to that point, how the holism is relevant for the human health. And Galen in later 130 to 201 AD, he proposed treatment based on the therapy, the drugs which is capable of producing opposite effect in the human body, and that is what Galen proposed. And Charaka Samhita, you know that, and Susruta Samhita of the Indian tradition, and Charaka Samhita was written around 400 to 200 BC, and later it got upgraded around 100 BC to 100 AD. Similarly, Susruta Samhita, the basic seeds you could see in 700 to 600 BC, but later from 400 BC to 200 BC, it became more perfected and it got upgraded till 600 AD. So, it is a long process of more than 1000 years in the evolution of ancient medicines, and by the tradition of physicians, one after another, they improved the quality of treatment and the concept of medicine, and they wrote authentic books like Charaka Samhita and some Susruta Samhita, etc. And in the Western world, when you look at it, and even the Hippocratic medicine or the Charaka Samhita, which based on the concept of holism. That is why they propose 3 humor theory and 4 humor theory, which consider the whole human being as a single unit. And another important person who proposed the holism in medicine is Aristotle. His period was 384 to 322 BC, and his father was a physician at the court of Philip, the king of Macedonia. And Aristotle was also closely related to the medical world. And as a philosopher, as a scientist, as a physician, Aristotle proposed holism, considering the human being as a single unit. And even in acupuncture, we will see that the physicians of Chinese medicine always consider human being in a single unit, including their mind and body. So, the philosophy of medicine, when we go later, so this is a story of in the BC 500, BC 100 age, but later after 1500 years down the line, one of the greatest personality in the human history, that is Descartes, the René Descartes, his period was 1596 to 1650. He followed the tradition suggested by Paracelsus 100 years back, and Descartes proposed, and he is not only related to medicine. Descartes as a philosopher, he is the father of today's world. And Descartes, Lord Bacon and Isaac Newton, 3 of them together created the world in which we are living now. And now we are finding the limitations of the philosophy of Descartes and the limitations of the philosophy proposed by Newton as well as Francis Bacon. So, this 500 years was the period of advancement of the philosophies and science proposed by these 3 great personalities in the beginning of Renaissance in the European civilization. So, what Descartes proposed is very important to know, because Descartes proposed a dualistic mechanistic philosophy, because till the period of Descartes, whole being was considered as a single unit, whether it is in the Greek philosophy or the Greek medicine or in Egyptian medicine or in Indian medicine or in Chinese medicine. You will find that human being was considered as a single unit composed of mind and body, and in effect the mind was given more importance than body in most of the time. So, Descartes realized one thing, that human being is nothing but, or he proposed that human body is a combination of organs, and he thought that harmonious functioning of individual organs give harmonious life. So, he proposed the study of disease and diagnosis of disease and treatment of disease should be more based on the study of individual organs and tissues. This was a drastic shift from the early historical, humanistic as well as holistic approach of all ancient civilizations and their medicine, except the surgery practiced in a very small scale. So, Descartes' consideration of harmonious functioning and harmonious unity of organs and tissues leads to the healthy living was a totally new approach to the ancient approach of health and diseases. And in effect, Descartes placed body over the mind in the matters of human health and diseases. Till the period of Descartes, it was mind over the body, but with the Descartes, it was tectonically shifted. There was a drastic shift happened, and he proposed body is more important than the mind. And he said, if the organs are functioning well, the human structure is functioning well. And he said that human being is a mechanical being, and the mind and body are separate entities. They are not one and same. And harmonious function of the organs and tissues leads to harmonious living of a human being, and mind should be considered as a separate entity, and both should be connected through the process of parallelism. Both of them work parallelly but in a harmonious unity. This is what Descartes proposed, and this proposition was the basis on which the industrial world evolved, the world of thought process in the last 500 years evolved, and essentially the health industry, health science, the medical world also evolved in the same line. And that is why we have enormous knowledge about the human structure, functions, and its health and diseases today. And that is why we have, and this Cartesian philosophy is the foundation of current human civilization. That we should know very well. We should understand it. Cartesian philosophy is the foundation of the today's human civilization. And it leads to enormous advancements in the technology and enormous knowledge in the specialization based biomolecular medicine. We have 100 specializations today, and these specializations are focused on individual organs and individual functions of human body. And these organ specific studies itself is enormous, not able to completely reach. And this level of understanding give us unlimited knowledge, and we become more and more perfect in understanding the functioning of the human body and where it goes wrong. So we will see that this enormous growth of the medical world in the last 500 years, especially in the last 100 years, specifically in the last 50 years or 70 years, we know that the mechanistic approach and organ based specialization has reached its zenith. It has reached a high level of perfection, and that gives enormous knowledge to the human beings and medical doctors. And on the other end, we have the concept of holism, how the holism, that is considering the human beings as a single unit of mind and body, where the interaction of mind and body is counted each time when you treat a patient. Whereas in an organ specific treatment and specialization, rather than looking at the interaction between mind and body and multiple influences, we look at the specific organs and its specific alterations and specific modification and how the disease is produced, and we try to correct at the organ level specifically, and at biochemical level, at an organ level, or at a tissue level, and we are able to cure a lot of patients through that way. So these two approaches is the basis of conflict in the medical world of the current scenario. But scientific advancement always leads to resolution of conflicts rather than promoting the conflicts. So when we look at the scientific advancement of medicine in the last 500 years, the advancement of medicine in the last 70 years after the discovery of DNA by Watson and Crick, and as well as the decoding of the DNA in the last 20 years has given us enormous advantage to integrate the concept of mechanistic medicine proposed by Descartes and the holistic medicine which is necessarily surviving in the human civilization for the last 10,000 years. So how can we do that? That is what I am saying. Scientific advancement never increases the conflicts in the human society. Scientific advancement always reduces the possibility of conflicts, because it enlightens the people, it takes more knowledge into our mind, and it evolves our consciousness to the next stage. Therefore, the silly conflicts will become unimportant once we know the truth behind. So the thing is, the scientific advancement in the last 20 years, what we are seeing in the medicine particularly and the science in general, is from gross organ to the subtle existence. That means we thought that organ specific studies can lead to complete cure of diseases, but the reality has taken us to a different level. Especially the organ specific specialization has enormously increased our knowledge about the diseases and the process of diseases, but we couldn't cure majority of chronic diseases. But in many other mechanical problems we could easily solve, and any conditions of accident and emergencies, this mechanistic approach helped to give life back to human beings. So the superiority of this mechanistic approach of Descartes proposed, and later it became specializations in the medicine, has enormously helped to know about the human body and to cure plenty of diseases at an organ level and at a tissue level, and in many conditions where the life threatening situations are completely managed by the well advanced medicine of specialization. But when we come to the last 20 years of DNA studies and especially the decoding of DNA and further deep analysis of human genetic structure takes us to one more different level. What is that level? That means the organs and tissues which are fundamentally being focused on the organ specialization. Now we know that whether it is a kidney or it is a liver or it is a pancreas or it is a heart or any organ in the body has its basic structure and functions coded in the DNA. Therefore, many of the diseases which is coming in the organs and tissues have its roots in the specific DNA and the specific DNA mutation or a specific DNA error. And it is not in a single longitudinal process, because when you go to the DNA, this is a multi-layer, multi-connectivity activity. So, when this multi-layer activity happening in the DNA level, it is much more complex. But the reality we are understanding now is, end of the day, we need to start from the DNA rather than from the organ itself. So, this knowledge, organ based knowledge and the genetic based latest knowledge, if we integrate together, we get a proper integration of Cartesian duality which propose mind and body separation, as well as the holism which is consider mind and body as a single unit. So, these two entities which is living on the two edges can come together and combine together, and a complete health system can be created by considering the current knowledge of the specialization plus the knowledge which is acquired through the genetic decoding, as well as the concept of holism which is practiced for thousands of years. So, we know that genetic coding is the basis from which the anatomy and from which the physiology of organs, from which the anomalies are also arising. Therefore, the future philosophy of medicine is very interesting if you look at this angle, because it is going to reduce the conflict in the health industry and it is going to give the best possible result for the human beings in their future health. So, the evolving knowledge of DNA structure is the basis for solving the question of mind matter duality also. It is clear that body and mind arise from DNA coding. Till now we were asking, where is the mind, how is the mind? Body is visible, body is true. Mind is invisible, therefore mind may not be true. But now we know that majority of psychiatric illnesses have specific gene defects, and human personalities and human characters have specific genetic trait. So, once we go deeper and deeper into the DNA, we are very sure that this conflict between mind and body interaction is going to be permanently solved. And we are sure that science is progressing in the same line. And as the science progresses deeper and deeper, it is capable of solving conflicts which lasted for thousands of years. And that is what we are seeing. So, similarly, holism is moving from assumptions, but now we are moving away from the assumptions, and we know that how this holistic concept and holistic medication changes the DNA. So, changes are happening at the basic level, and when it becomes a concrete knowledge, the confusions will vanish and a new knowledge will evolve, and that is going to be the greatest advantage of advancement of science. So as we know, the knowledge of genetics evolves. The contradiction which exists today between specialized medicine of the conventional biomolecular system and holism based methodologies proposed and treated in homeopathy and similar like-minded holistic approaches will definitely vanish, because they operate in two different levels. And now we know the levels very clearly, and these two levels can be integrated, and when you integrate that, that is going to be the point of agreement. And once we go to the point of agreement, a cure at organ level is possible, and at the same time cure at the genetic level is also possible by the application of nanopharmacology of homeopathy. And this leads to drastic increase in the cure rate and drastic reduction in the cost of medication and treatment. And this integration of nanopharmacology, which is a genetic medicine and which makes epigenetic modifications in the DNA and which permanently cures the diseases, and this integration of organ specific treatment and genetic specific modulations can be a great boon for the humanity, for the future health and the future economy of the nations, because even in America in 2018, 17.5% of United States of America's GDP, that is around $3.7 trillion has been spent for health care, and this spending is going on increasing, but health is not improving. This is a reality around the world. This is because of this conflict of understanding, and once this conflict of understanding is solved at a scientific level, there is nothing to quarrel and nothing to fight, and there is only a point of agreement where the basic structure of human existence, that is a DNA, where the disease originates, has to be treated and cured. At the same time, wherever the organs are affected, wherever the organs are damaged, whichever the pathophysiology happens or the pathology affects the organs, an organ level treatment also has to be given. So once you are able to come to this level of understanding, the humanity is going to enjoy better health in a minimum price, minimum affordable price, and that is going to be the new medicine. Thank you so much.